Welcome back to another episode of the DFS Express. Here to talk UFC 234 main event, Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum for the middleweight championship of the world. I am your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper. Apologies in advance if my voice sounds a little off. I, like a lot of people, am under the weather, going to fight through it and do this express episode. Quick usual promotional / disclaimers, please give me a follow on Twitter at the DFS Sniper. Like this YouTube video. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on the Loudmouth MMA Network, thank you. Jump over and like my YouTube channel. And if you're not, make sure and subscribe to Loudmouth MMA wherever you find your podcasts. A lot of great a lot of great shows there in general, variety of content around the cage, which is kind of like ESPN's Around the Horn, MMA Yesterday, this show, breakdowns, checked all that out. Newsom MMA, shout out to those guys. The tape index has been great for me while I've been sick, researching all kinds of tape there. He also sells bet packages. Make sure and check out Newsom MMA. And as always, we're here for DraftKings. This is the DFS Express. I'm a coach at DFS Army. Go to dfsarmy.com. Use the code SNIPER for 20% off your membership. MMA and soccer, what I cover, as well as tennis, but all great sports. NBA, obviously, is crazy time with the trade deadline. We have MLB coming up. So make sure and be a DFS Army VIP, where we'll do more in-depth breakdowns, as well as this in the Express episode. I am going to go through these fights very quickly, get you in and out of here. My initial reactions to the fights. I record this on Wednesdays. Things could change throughout the week. All my thoughts as things do change will be posted over at DFS Army in the VIP chat. All those disclaimers being out of the way, let's get to breaking down some fights. First up, we have, it is Jonathan Martinez at 8,500 taking on Waliji Burin at 7,700. Martinez is the favorite, minus 160. Burin, the comeback is plus 140. You're really hurting for underdogs this week. Waliji Burin is one that I actually like. He is a grappler, and that is the best thing about him. He doesn't have the greatest of top game, but he looks for takedowns. He's strong. He throws with power on the feet. Martinez, even if you liked him, he's a low-volume striker, lost to Andre Sukumta in his UFC debut. Unless he gets a finish, he's not going to score well. These are 135ers. I don't really see a finish here. Waliji Burin, I think, will be able to use body lock takedowns and get Martinez to the mat. And I'm not sure Martinez has the get-up game. It may not be the highest scoring win, but Burin is going to be grappling based. And I do think of all the underdogs in the card, he is one of my favorites to look for. The line is also falling on him. It was 160 earlier in the week. I like Waliji Burin at 7,700. Jalen Turner, 8,700, taking on Callan Potter at 7,500. Guys, in this fight, Turner's the favorite, minus 230. Potter, plus 190. Look, Potter's on this card because he's an Aussie. He is a journeyman guy. Doesn't look very good, to be quite honest. Jalen Turner, phenom, a lot of knockouts, finishing people. Dana White Tuesday Contender Series fight, but he got a really tough UFC debut in Vicente Luque, and he got knocked the you-know-what out. That's my biggest worry in this fight. He is waited like a week longer than that mandatory suspension, which was like 4 months. He's back right away. Toe-to-toe, though, Jalen Turner should knock this guy out. Faster on the feet, stronger, explosive dude, just a better athlete. But Potter is live just because we've seen guys come back too quick from knockouts before, but the pick is still Jalen Turner, and he is one of my favorite GPP plays on the card at 8,700. Lando Venata, 9,300, taking on, excuse me, guys, sorry, bear with me, Marcus Mariano at 6,900. Line in this fight, Venata minus 390. Marcos Rosa Mariano, those Brazilians have different names. He's plus 320. Look, I read somewhere that, or saw on Twitter, for what it's worth, that Mariano's on this card because Anderson Silva wanted him on this card. I watched tape on him. He's tall, but he is slow. He looks lost on the ground. I just don't think he's very good. Lando Venata, I know he's let people down before. He hasn't won a UFC fight in his last 4. He's 0-2-2. Draws with Frivola and Bobby Green. Losses against Close and David Tamer. Look, Venata should be able to knock this guy out. I get scared you trust him again, but Venata should be so much better on the feet. He has a grappling background. He could wrestle this guy to death. I like Venata at 9,300. Kwanho Kang, 9,400, taking on Teruto Ishihara at 6,800. Kang, the favorite, at minus 425. Ishihara plus 340. Speaking of guys who are lost on the ground, that explains Teruto Ishihara. He's 1-4 in his last 5. His only win is over Rolando D, who is not any good. Kang lost to Ricardo Ramos last time out in a close fight, split decision. Before that, beat Guido Canetti after his long layoff due to service in the Korean military. Strong grappler. He can get guys to the ground. He takes guys down in his fights, and that's where Ishihara is lost. Ishihara, good on the feet, has power. I just don't think Kang is going to let it stay there very long, and Kang should be the bigger guy in this matchup as well. Kang to play at 9,400. Kai Kara France, 9,000, taking on... can't remember his first name. It's like Raulian. Pull up DraftKings. Raulian Paiva. Sorry if I messed up that first name. I'm pretty sure his last name is Paiva. He's at 7,200. Kaikara France minus 300. Paiva to come back plus 250. These are 125ers. Kaikara France was on the tough show. Didn't get a contract off of that. Rattled off a bunch of wins to get into the UFC. Won his debut against Elias Garcia, where he was pretty impressive. Really good Muay Thai. Paiva, okay stand-up. Ultimately, I just don't think he's as good as Kaikar France. He is a young kid. France looks like the more polished striker, and it should be able to get off his back if Paiva looks to take this fight to the ground, which I don't think he will. My worry with France is how good does he score. But at 9,000, I do think he's the safer play. I think it's a stand-up fight, and he wins a 3-round decision. Shane Young, 9,100, taking on Austin Arnett at 7,100. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. This cold is killing me. Shane Young, 9,100, taking on Austin Arnett at 7,100. Shane Young minus 325. The comeback on Arnett is plus 265. Look, I don't like Arnett in any format. He is a striker who gets hit a lot. Won a close decision last time out against Humberto Bandenay, who gassed out. Shane Young, UFC debut against Volkanovski, came back really impressively against Rolando D, who I did mention earlier is not any good. But if Young has that kind of game plan, aggressive, push Arnett against the cage, takedowns, grind him out, repeat the takedown, obviously he could score really well. I don't rate Austin Arnett very highly. Young isn't my favorite option in that range, but I do think he's a relatively safe one at 9,100. Arnett has proven to be tough to finish. Also had that war in the Tuesday Night Contender Series with Brandon Davis, but I do like Shane Young. Devontae Smith, 8,600, taking on Dunghyun Ma. It's not Dunghyun Kim anymore. Devontae Smith, 8,600. Ma, 7,600. The odds on this fight. Smith minus 245. The comeback on Kim is plus 205. The worry here with Devontae Smith, looked good in his UFC debut against Julian Erosa. He's shown usually finishes guys in the first round. He is a destroyer in the first round. All his wins are by finish. His one loss was to John Gunther, which, read into that what you will. Excuse me, I need more water. I apologize, guys, for all the throat clearing. I'm sure if you're listening on podcasts, it's really annoying. I am doing my best. Smith lost to John Gunther. Obviously, Gunther not very good. And he gasses out. Ma has a grappling-based game plan, or can. He's shown to be durable in the past. Had that war with Polo Reyes, which I talk about all the time. If this gets past the first round, it really favors Dunghyun Ma. Early in the fight, he has to stay away from Smith or survive the first round with Devontae Smith. First round, Smith KO. Ma getting a grinding type of decision or a late finish are the two ways I see this fight going. For the value, because I'm hurting on this card, I think Dunghyun Ma is my preferred play at 7,600. Jimmy Crute, 8,300, taking on Sam Alvey at 7,900. Crute, the favorite, minus 135. Alvey, the dog, plus 115 on the comeback. Look, GPP fight. We know what Sam Alvey is. It was finished by Rogerio Nogueira, Antonio Minotauro Nogueira last time out. I think my Nogueira is mixed up. He was finished by Little Nog last time out in the second round. Before that, wins over Jean Vellante and Marcin Prachnio. So not great wins. Alvey, the big counter striker, right hand. He needs to get a knockout to pay off, and if it's not in the first round, he's going to score poorly as it is. I will have some shares of Alvey. Jimmy Crute, 22-year-old newcomer, Australia, looked really strong against Paul Craig. Has some grappling chops, could have an advantage there if he can get Alvey to the ground. He's a little undersized, still growing into this weight class. That being said, Sam Alvey's fought at middleweight before as well. I do think I'm going to go with the youngster in this one, a little bit of grappling background. My one concern, and take Jimmy Crute as my pick. I will play Alvey in GPPs because Crute is so aggressive, he could walk into an Alvey right hand. Montana Delarosa, 8,800, taking on Nadia Kassim at 7,400. Delarosa up to minus 255. Comeback on Kassim is plus 215. It's the fight that right now I feel strongest about on the card. Delarosa, really good BJJ for this division. Subbed out Rachel Ostovich last time out. She needs to get this fight to the ground. That's really the worry. But that's the worry of Delarosa in most of her fights. Nadia Kassim was taken down multiple times by Alex Chambers in her last fight. She won because she was able to reverse. I don't think she'll be able to reverse against Delarosa. I'd be stunned. I know Kassim is fighting in her home country, but Delarosa should have the ground game and the chops to get this one done. She's my preferred play at 8,800. Ricky Simone, 8,200, taking on Yaya at 8,000. Simone minus 120, Yaya the comeback plus 100. Closest fight on the card. Look, Simone has that relentless grappling style. Yaya, submission wizard. I don't think this fight, though, is going to end up being where grappling cancels each other out and they strike, mostly because Yaya finds a way to get these fights to the ground. Even the fights he loses that I watch, it's because he can't find a sub and he's on the bottom for 2 rounds. He can get a little complacent. Ultimately, though, I am more comfortable in Yaya. Even I've seen some people questioning the gas tank. I get it. I'm going to have both sides of this fight. If you have a strong opinion either way, it's not a hard enough pick for me to talk you off of it. I just think through 3 rounds, Yaya is going to find a submission somewhere in this fight or control Ricky Simone enough. I think Yaya could sweep Simone and end up in top position, which as good of a grappler as Simone is, I don't know what he'll be able to do on bottom against Yaya. So give me Yaya at 8,000 is my preferred play. Israel Adesanya, 9,600, taking on Anderson Silva at 6,600. Look, the line is just a little wide for me. Adesanya is minus 630. The comeback on Silva is plus 465. That seems crazy. Adesanya is the next big thing. We all know about him, the flashy striking style. Silva, one of the GOATs. They're going to stand and trade is what they say. Look, for Adesanya to pay off in GPPs, he needs like 120 points. Who does that against Anderson Silva? You need a couple knockdowns. I'm still picking Adesanya. I'm not willing to totally count Anderson Silva out in a striking matchup. Is Adesanya going to get gun shy because Silva's a great counter striker? Is he going to slow the pace down like Brunson? Is Silva going to have success counter striking because Adesanya is going to bring the fight to him? And something that's worth mentioning that, I don't think it'll happen, but if Silva's getting touched on the feet, what if he shoots? We've never seen Anderson Silva shoot, but what if he goes for a takedown? He has a BJJ black belt. We've seen Adesanya with decent takedown defense, but he won't be expecting it against Silva. Just another aspect of this fight. Silva at 6,600, because he's so cheap, I think he'll be a little chalky, but it's not a bad play, even though it will be chalky. Just for the salary relief, as I mentioned on this card, we do need, despite picking Adesanya, who I do think his speed will be too much in the end, Silva is my preferred play for the price at 6,600. Main event, 8,900, Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin Gastelum at 7,300. Whittaker, the favorite, minus 245. Gastelum plus 205. You didn't see, by the way, Gastelum saw UFC embedded. He definitely has ringworm. Shouldn't affect him. I'm a little worried this fight gets pulled. I mean, not super concerned because people have pointed out Kevin Lee fought with Staff, and you never know. What's worth mentioning. Be ready to pivot around on fight day just in case, but you should always be ready for that. Breakdown. Both these guys is funny, are slightly undersized middleweights who have fought at welterweight, fighting for the UFC middleweight title. I will say Robert Whittaker obviously has had those 2 wars with Yoel Romero. At some point, those are going to catch up to them, but until you see it, it's hard to plan for that. Gastelum is a really good boxer. Hasn't had a ton of success taking people down up in the higher level of the UFC, which obviously if Romero didn't have success against Whittaker trying to get him to the ground, I don't think Gastelum will. But where Gastelum has struggled is against wrestlers where he is undersized. Like Weidman was so much bigger than him. Neil Magny, the range proved to be an issue. And Tyron Woodley, these big, strong grapplers, which I don't think that Whittaker is. Ultimately, though, on the feet, I think Whittaker is going to have more gas for 5 rounds. I think that unless Gastelum puts him away early as this fight gets dragged into deep water, Whittaker's experience, speed, the home country, ultimately I think it's going to be a little bit too much for Gastelum. But Gastelum's crisp boxing, we've seen that right hand knock people out before. We know that Whittaker is hittable. I'm picking Whittaker to win. I would probably say at a scale of 10, I'm like 4 or 5 confidence-wise. But because I will stack this fight in cash, I think I don't think it ends super quick, and I think they'll be somewhat active here. And just, again, with the lack of dogs, stacking makes sense to me. I will have a fair amount of Gastelum because if he wins, he's going to end up on the optimal lineup. And, there's only 3 or 4 dogs that I've picked as preferred plays. So Whittaker's the pick. Similar to the last fight, though, the cheaper guy in Gastelum is my preferred play. Guys, thanks for bearing with me here through this. I know I took a couple water breaks, cleared my throat a bunch, but hope you found the information useful. Make sure to check out Loudmouth MMA, Newsom MMA, and the DFS Army. Join up. Find me in our VIP chat. Ask me all kinds of questions. Get really up your DFS game. Use the code Sniper for 20% off. Follow me on Twitter at the DFS Sniper. And most of all, for these videos, if you guys could hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Good luck in your contest. I'll talk to you throughout the week, and we'll catch you next week as we have a string of quite a few events here in a row.